Big warm welcome, Frank Stronach.
Thank you, Steve, for giving a great rundown on how Magna functions and works. Okay, saves me a lot of time so I can spend some of my words for other subjects. I'd like to thank Sandra Ferry, the President and CEO of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce, for putting a lot of effort in to organize this event and the emphasis on how important the economy is. And I've always said, if the economy doesn't work, nothing else will work. You cannot feed the hungry, and you cannot look after the most fragile ones. And society is changing quite rapidly. Let's take an example. Let's say an ordinary family in Toronto. Let's say you have 2 kids. The son might find a job in Vancouver. The daughter might find a job in Ottawa. It used to be that the grandparents looked after the grandchildren, then the grandchildren looked after the grandparents. All that is falling apart. There'll be a lot of problems, a lot of loneliness, a lot of, because it hasn't totally sunk in yet, because we live in a society where, I guess, people go where the jobs are, etc., etc. But anyway, this is something we gotta keep in mind, that we have to think about it. How can we, what can we do about it? I think many years ago we established the Neighborhood Network, which was trying to alleviate some of those problems, you know, what elderly people have. And Steve Hinder, I think I've seen it around here, has done a great job over the years and making sure that the Neighborhood Network works. And myself in Magna, I was born in Austria. When I was 22, I came from a working class family. When I was 22, I wanted to see the world, and I applied for different countries for a visa because I had to go someplace but also get a working permit, right? I applied to South Africa, Australia, the United States, and Canada. Sometimes I'm a little hard on the Canadian bureaucracy, but I'm still saying it's the best. They came forward first with the visa, and I wound up in Canada. Never forget that. It was, I think, early in April. I was 22 years of age. I took the cheapest fare from Europe to, it was an old coal boat. You know, I took a fare to, they went from Holland, from Rotterdam to Quebec City. When I got off the boat, there was an immigration officer there. He said, "Do you know anybody in Canada?" I said, "No, I don't." "Well, then go to Montreal." And he gave me a train ticket to go to Montreal. And when I got off the train, right, I've never seen such a big railroad station than the Montreal railroad station. And my English was, you know, I had a reasonable good understanding, and on the boat there were some Canadians, and so I kind of asked them questions, etc., etc. I said, because I know I had $200 in my pocket, and I know that wouldn't last too long, so I inquired, how do you find a room, etc. And so I said, look, just walk up and down the roads, and if you see a sign, room to let, you just knock on the door, and then perhaps you'll get a room, right? So that's what I did. I walked for quite a while. I knocked on a lot of doors where I saw a sign, but I just coming off the boat, and I think I looked a little, you know, not the best in shape. It was always rented, but after a few hours I did find a room, and I slept, and the next day I went looking for work, and well, I just couldn't find anything. So that's the first time I went to a labor organization and said if they know of anybody which does the hiring, and they said, yeah, there's a golf course out there, and they're looking for somebody to retrieve the golf course. And in those days they didn't have any automation machinery which picks up. So anyway, I traveled up and down the road with a bus, and I just couldn't find the golf course. Little did I know the golf courses are not on public bus routes. So okay. But sometimes I wonder, figured if I would have found the golf course, I was pretty sporty and had a lot of energy. Gee, I could have been one of the great golfers. So, but anyway, but life is really a question of fate and circumstances, being at the right place at the right time. But I also said it doesn't matter how smart you are. If the stars are not aligned, it won't work, right? Okay, so and I've been very fortunate that most of the time I could say the stars were always in the right place, and I'm using a quote now from one of Canada's great philosophers, from Leacock, and Stephen Leacock, and one of his sayings was, I'm a great believer in luck. The harder I work, the more luck I have. So I've been lucky that way, but I do admit I did work a lot. Right? Just a quick story how everything got started. My first job, I couldn't find a job in Montreal, so I knew somebody which lived in Kitchener. Comes from the same small town I come from, and I had his address in my wallet, and I took I saved enough monies, and with my last monies I bought a Greyhound bus ticket from Montreal to Kitchener, and when I got out on the Kitchener main square, I looked at my wallet, looked at the address, and I said, I hope this guy's still home. And so I asked for something, the direction where such and such a road is. So I said, look, go up about 10 blocks that way, and then ask again. So there, yeah, then another few blocks, and make a left. But anyway, after about a couple of hours, I did find the job, and I knocked on the door, and there was an elderly lady there, and I said, there's such and such a guy here, yeah. Lives here, and so she called up. His name was Max, and she said, Max, there's somebody down here which you want to see you. And that was a great feeling. The guy looked at me, he said, look, you kind of look rough. Are you hungry? I said, yes, I'm hungry. Okay. And sometimes I point out, when you're hungry, it's not because you want to lose weight, but when you're hungry because you get no money to buy food, that leaves a very deep impression. It's branded forever. Okay, never forgot that. So anyway, I did find a job in Kitchener, in the Kitchener Waterloo Hospital. One day off a week, $150 a month. But I felt so sorry for myself because I wound up in the kitchen there, just elderly women. Nothing against elderly women. My mother was an elderly woman. I loved her a lot. But I just was itching to get away, and those days there was slow dancing, etc. And so, usually when you dance, what's your name, where you're from, what you do. I said, I work in a hospital. My hands were so smooth from washing dishes that, a lot of girls said, you're a surgeon? I kidded around a bit. But towards the end, I always said, no, actually, I'm just a dishwasher, right? Mainly, and usually I know these girls didn't want to dance like this with the dishwasher, but it's okay. But the odd one did, and that's what I would call true love. Okay. So anyway, you go to some experience like that. So I drifted down to Oakville. There was a time when Ford was hiring and it was a big lineup. So finally, I could fill out a piece of paper to tell them what my qualifications were. I was a gold die maker by trade, and they looked at me because I was only 22. They said, "Look, you got never a lot of experience," so I wasn't hired. But a number of years later, you know, I had occasional lunch with the president of Ford, and I said, "Look, you're lucky. If I would have been hired, I would be the president of Ford, and you would be." So things go like that in life. So, but anyway, I found a job in a small company in Toronto, and after a few months I was laid off. There was no work, and I had a few $1,000s saved up. I rented a small garage and I went out around the factories. If you know Toronto, it was a Dufferin and Dovercourt and that thing here. It was the gatehouse of American Standard, you know. So I went out, and I always had reasonable confidence in myself, and I was always self-assured. I worked in the factories. I said, "I'm great in solving problems. If I can't solve the problems, they didn't have to pay me." So anyway, after 1 month I hired somebody, after a year about 10 people, after 2 years about 20, after 3 years about 100, and after 5 years I think 1,000, and after 10 years about 20,000, etc., etc. And we grew and grew and grew. But I think it's very important that I tell you the first episode, you know, when I just had the first year or the second year about 10 people, and I noticed my foreman was a little different. His name was Herman. I said, "Herman, what's the matter with you lately? You know, a little different." "Well," he said, "Frank, I'm thinking of starting my own company." You know, he started with me, and so I said, "Look, I sympathize with that, and let's talk tomorrow," I said, "and maybe we find another solution." Anyway, that evening I was talking to myself, and I said, if that foreman's going to leave me, that would stifle my growth. I didn't like that. The next reason was, if that foreman's going to leave me, I would have to hire somebody else. And if I hire somebody else, if I don't show him how to run the business, then I still got it all to work. And if I show him that new guy, I will call it a prospective new foreman, if I show him how business is run, after 1 or 2 years, you know, they'll leave. We'll start on their own, right? So anyway, I said the next day to him, "Look, why don't we start a new company?" I said, "You have 30%. And no more overtime. We have a base salary. Towards the end of the year, we take some monies out, and the rest we invest." So he said, "Do you mean that?" I said, "Yes." And so we went right away to the lawyer. We wrote it down. That guy worked like crazy. That was his company. Then I took the next woman, the next woman, the next woman, the next woman. All of a sudden, I had about 12 companies, right? And things were really, and then somebody approached me, you know, and there was Magna Electronics, and they say, "Gee, you guys doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Why don't you sell your companies, and you would be the majority shareholder at Magna Electronics?" At that time, I came to the conclusion that at the time only the foreman shared in the profits. I came to the conclusions all the workers should share too. And that's a lot easier when you have a public company. So I entertained that, and we arrived on the thing that I sold my company, Magna Electronics, and 1 or 2 years later, I implemented corporate constitution, the labor charter of rights, and it's amazing. The potential in every person, right? If you take the chains off, you know, if you give them the freedom to do things, and so we just grew. You know, there was a time when we built every month a new company. We have about 430 companies now, and 34 different countries. It's amazing what you can do. So Magna really, as Steve already mentioned, Magna is really more than a business. It's really a culture. We call it the fair enterprise system. The basic philosophy of fair enterprise is the human child of rights alone is not sufficient. We must fortify it with an economic child of rights. Economic charters of rights will lead to economic democracies, and economic democracies are the basis for democracy itself. So when we really think a little closer, take a little closer look, there won't be no democracy, unless there's economic democracy. And that's one of the great problems we have. Over the years, I spent a lot of time in Washington. I had a meeting once with the leader of the House, with Mitch McConnell. I said, Mitch, America did great by the free enterprise system, but free enterprise got a major problem. He said, what do you mean? I said, more capital is held by fewer and fewer. And I said, look, in nature, when a species does not reproduce itself, another species will take over. And the laws of nature are much stronger than any man-made law. The free enterprise system is the basic foundation for the capitalistic system. If we don't make capitalists out of the workers, the capitalistic system will be self-destroying. So we gotta think that in different ways. Things don't work too well anymore, right? And when the truckers strike, I've been writing a column in the Financial Post every week. When the truckers striked, I wrote a column the next day, and I said, Canadians should say thank you to the truckers for highlighting and bringing it forward. We're regulated. But I said, you made your point. Now you should go home and pursue it via democratic means to bring about change, to deregulate. I still remember about 50 years ago when the first computers came on the market. The slogan was, if you got one of those, you could eliminate a whole office for it. Now when I look around in Toronto, any other big city, we got 20 times more office buildings. What we do, we don't make products like that. It's regulations, regulations, regulations. I want to build a farmer's market, right? And I think here, it takes me 2 years to get a permit. It just, it was not because the farmer's market was too large, and that's not the thing here. So they have to amend the regulations to allow that, right? I mean, how could a farmer, when you do store, sell food, how can that be? It's so it doesn't solve to point fingers. And things are not, when we have a problem, might it be in a family, might it be in business, might be in the country, we should know we have a problem. If we don't know we got a problem, we really got a problem. Okay, so there are problems, but I still think Canada is the greatest country. We have factories in 34 different countries in the world, from South America to Asia to Europe to I could live in any one of those places. I've chosen, it's my free choice to be in Canada. It's a great, great, great country. And I would like to see a little more to start in schools, how important it is to vote, how important it is to show an interest. So that's we are a bit too complacent. So it's one of my things where I'm really worried, I decided about 12 years ago to leave the car industry. And for the simple reason, I felt there's no future in there. Gasoline engines, I said to myself, we got to be running out of gasoline much sooner than later. To me, it's amazing that we don't pull the brakes or the alarms that we're going to be running out of gasoline. When you kind of think all the gasoline being used every day, You know, in the world there's about 2 billion cars on the road. If they use just 1 gallon, that would be 2 billion gallons. It's like the Hudson River flowing down the St. Lawrence River. And you don't have to be a great scientist to know we're going to be running out. How are we going to get around? You know, we built the first hydrogen car. Went to BMW about 12 years ago. Yes, there's an answer, you can get around there, but much more expensive than small electric cars. And so I focused on what we call micro-mobility, right? So that's a small electric car. Micro-mobility, in loose terms, it means you can park 4 of those in a regular car parking spot. To be more specific, it cannot be wider than 3.5 feet, not longer than 7.5 feet. And I made sure I wanted to just on the edge of Toronto, right next to the 404 and Aurora Road, to have that factory. I think it'd be a great factory. It will provide a great future for the region here, and the region is great, and I've done extremely well, right, because we had a great labor force, right? I think we harmonized, we were open, we discussed all the problems, and so my kids were at one here, my grandchildren were at one here. I'm deeply rooted, it's okay, and I will be a mess, but I want to be constructive. It's not the bureaucrats' fault. It's not, you know, every person has a right to find a job, whatever the opening is, right? So it's not. But we are going to know most of the politicians, some of them quite great, but we have created a system where we can't move. We have put ourselves in chains. You know, in politics, what is politics, right? Whoever comes first forward with a new way of doing things gets criticized. You wind up with 1,000 poison arrows in the back. It doesn't work that well. But what do we leave our children behind? That debt is climbing. We pay now about $50 billion just to service the interest for the debt. What do we leave behind them? Huge amount of debt. The environment which gets worse and worse, you know. So we really, you will love your children, so we seriously have to think about it. What is wrong, right? And I've been, over the years, I've given hundreds of lectures in the University of Harvard, right across the nation, you know. And I came to the conclusion that we're not really talking about what would be the structure of an ideal society. Universities will be the ideal structure, right? Because they got lecture halls, they could invite people of various professionals, etc., from artistic to sports to medicine but again, the economy is very important. If that doesn't work, and we got to realize. The economy is driven by 3 forces: smart managers, hardworking employees, and investors. All 3 have a right to the outcome, which is profits. If we neglect that, and that's why Magna did so great. We had an open environment. You know, the workers looked in the financial papers, they own exact shares. When I make my rounds, you know, and then I talk to workers, let's make one thing clear. No government can guarantee your jobs. No union can guarantee your jobs, not even Magna. The one thing we can guarantee is that we have no discrimination and fairness on the workplace. So I created the hotlines. I took some people, which trusted people, and I explained to them, look, I think we need an environment when something isn't right that workers can call. When I installed the program, the managers were very upset at me and said, "You want to spy on me?" And I said, "No, it's not." So we've done because when you get larger, you know, as a manager, you cannot see everything anymore. So it's very important that you get the temperature or the feeling what goes on in the factory, right? And you got to give workers the chance to call someplace. It was very important. We made it absolutely clear, and I selected people that we never would reveal. If somebody put a complaint to, that never counted. So that was strictly held, and that was the strength. And nowadays, management say, "Gee, that's a great tool what we have here. We get to know what is the feeling." So we established a culture. But going about 12 years, again, I decided I don't want to be, because for the simple reason, there was a study done in 2020 that coronavirus worldwide killed about 4 million people, and the greenhouse gases killed over 8 million people. But we don't talk about it. The large cars create a lot of the greenhouse gases. And about 2 years ago, the premier called me and said, "Frank, I got a problem." I said, "What kind of problem?" Well, he said, "John Moses is closing." He said, "You know the car industry?" I was inducted in the American Automotive Hall of Fame in 2018. He said, "You know the car industry, give me some, I want to have some advice what I should do." So I worked on the plan. Then I had to go downtown a few times from the 401, which is the outer ring, to Bayfield in the cities. Yeah, okay. We finished in 2 minutes. I got the sign. So when I looked around, there was just 90%, 95% showing one person in the car, right? And I said, that doesn't make sense. So I went back to the workbench and I said, look, it's got to be a small electric car. So hopefully in November, it's the end of November, the factory is up and we can demonstrate that the people from Aurora can drive some of the vehicles. Okay, and I'm looking forward to create a great company, and I want to give you one more thing to think about it, because when I have a chance to speak, I like to provoke the minds of people, right? What do we do? Do we do really everything that our kids grow up healthy? Those nights I got into the agriculture, I could really see this enormous chemical jungle out there. In industrial farms, you don't see no more eagles fly. Why? There's no more pheasants. There's no more rabbits. We spray everything. We kill everything. The food we eat, people have no idea the amounts of chemicals in there. And I think all the parents, the prayer is, do our kids grow up healthy? Because if you're not healthy, it would hamper your learning activities. Okay, and there's no way you can be happy if you're hurting, right? So I don't think we could do better as a society if we think about it, what we should do, because it's so important that we give, so I'd like to see no Canadian kid should go to school hungry. That means there's got to be breakfast. No Canadian kid should ever leave the school hungry. That means we got to serve lunches, and it should be organic. And anybody saying we cannot afford that, that'd be a very big statement, because the cost, the medical costs, and the billions. Anyway, I hope it provoked your mind, something to think about it, and it's great that I have a chance to call it, you're my neighbors. I'm privileged to be a neighbor of yours. Okay, thank you.